The world won't announce your downfall with fanfare. It begins in silence. Not with a sword, not with a scandal, but with one small act you chose to tolerate. Let that sink in. Because the greatest threats to power don't come from riots in the streets or enemies at the gates. They come from the quiet betrayals you excuse. The disloyalty you forgive. The cowardice you pretend not to see. And while you sit there, hoping things will fix themselves, your throne is already beginning to rot. This video isn't for the soft-hearted. It's not a bedtime story for those chasing comfort. It's for the builders. The kings. The leaders. The ones who know that power doesn't fall, it erodes. Today, I'm revealing 7 behaviors that must never be tolerated. 7 invisible poisons that silently destroy your credibility, your empire, and your legacy. If you're serious about leading, whether it's your business, your family, or your future, watch until the end. And if something I say pierces a truth you've tried to ignore, don't flinch. Hit like. Subscribe. And share it with the ones who still believe loyalty is optional. Because survival doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to the most ruthlessly aware. Part 1, Betrayal in Times of Crisis. Anyone can raise a glass when the sun is shining. But Machiavelli said, true loyalty is revealed when everything goes to hell. It's easy to make promises when business is booming, when everyone's celebrating. But when the storm hits, when you're bleeding, burning, broken, that's when you'll see who was real. They were there when you were winning. Toasting your success. Calling you, brother. But the second you stumble. Gone. No call. No message. Just silence. And then, when you rise again, because you will, they come back with excuses wrapped as apologies. I didn't know what to say. I was dealing with stuff. I meant to be there. Don't believe them. Because nothing screams louder than silence when you were on the floor. Letting betrayal slide doesn't make you noble. It makes you a target. It sends a message, loyalty is optional here, as long as you return at the right time. And the second that belief takes hold, you're no longer surrounded by allies, you're surrounded by opportunists. People who don't follow you out of respect, but because you still have something they want. You're not a leader to them. You're a temporary advantage. In a crisis, you don't need 100 followers. You need one person who stays when it all falls apart. That one is worth more than every cheerleader who disappears at the first sign of trouble. Machiavelli warned us, betrayal isn't just a personal wound, it's a crack in the structure of power. Because when one person abandons you with no consequence, everyone watching starts to ask. Is he really untouchable? And once they start asking that question, it's only a matter of time before someone answers it with a knife. So when you're betrayed in your darkest moment, remember this. Don't seek closure. Don't chase explanations. Just remember faces. Because forgiving that betrayal doesn't restore trust. It declares weakness. And weakness invites wolves. Part 2, Cowardice in Leadership. There is one thing more destructive than enemies, and that's a coward on the throne. You think threats come from the outside? No. Empires collapse when the man in charge starts fearing his own power. Cowardice doesn't always look like fear. It hides behind polished words. Behind, let's wait, let's discuss, or, let's be ethical. But Machiavelli saw through it, this isn't strategy, it's paralysis. The coward in power isn't weighing options. He's hiding behind committees. He's stalling because he's terrified of being wrong. And that hesitation, it doesn't stay at the top. It trickles down. Infecting every level of the hierarchy like a disease. Picture a battlefield. Arrows flying. Chaos erupting. You look to your commander, and he's frozen. You don't need the enemy to kill you. That silence will. A fearful leader doesn't just erode confidence. He creates an atmosphere of uncertainty where no one knows what to believe in anymore. And when belief dies, loyalty soon follows. Machiavelli knew, an army doesn't fear enemies, it fears indecision. Leadership isn't about waiting for perfect clarity. It's about commanding in the fog. Acting when doubt fills the air. Because that's what separates rulers from seat warmers. You can make a wrong decision and recover. But hesitate at the wrong moment, and the entire system crumbles beneath you. You've seen those types. They talk about peace, virtue, compromise. But they're not noble, they're afraid. Not of doing wrong, but of doing anything at all. They don't need more time. They need more spine. True leaders don't ask for permission to act. They act, and earn loyalty through results, not intention. Because power isn't held by the one who waits. It's held by the one who moves. So remember. Fear disguised as calm leadership is still fear. And followers will forgive harshness. But they will never forgive cowardice. Part 3, Tolerating Disrespect in Small Doses. It never starts with a slap. It starts with a smirk. A sarcastic remark. A little eye roll in the meeting. A joke that's just close enough to being disrespectful, so you don't call it out. And that's where the downfall begins. Not with war. Not with betrayal. But with tolerance of micro-disrespect that you told yourself wasn't a big deal. Let me make this crystal clear. Every empire that fell began with a moment of ignored disrespect. Why? Because what you tolerate sets the tone for what others think they can get away with. The moment you let it slide, you're not being the bigger person. You're lowering the standard. Now you've opened the door. Today it's a joke. Tomorrow, it's disobedience. Next week, it's outright defiance. And 6 months later, you're sitting in a house of cards wondering how it all collapsed. People don't test you because they hate you. They test you to see your boundaries. And if you don't enforce them, if you let that one disrespect pass, you've just told the entire room. This man can be pushed. Now guess what happens next? They push. Harder. More often. And eventually, you're not respected, you're tolerated. Barely. Machiavelli didn't mince words here. He said it outright, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Because love is voluntary. But fear? Fear creates order. And order protects power. Now don't confuse fear with cruelty. Fear doesn't mean violence. Fear means clarity, there are lines. If you cross them, you bleed. If you allow disrespect, especially in public, you weaken not just yourself, but the entire aura around you. Respect isn't built with good intentions. It's built with boundaries. With the unshakable presence of a man who doesn't let small things slide, because he understands one simple truth. There are no small cracks in power. Only early signs of collapse. So the next time someone disrespects you, don't laugh it off. Don't tell yourself it's not worth the energy. Because if you don't kill it at the seed, it will grow into something that poisons everything you've built. If you're still watching, that tells me one thing. You're not here to be liked. You're here to build something that can't be shaken. But understand this, you can't build it alone. You need people around you who hold the same standard. Who understand loyalty. Who value strength. Who recognize power is not a costume, it's a responsibility. So if this message resonates, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment. Send it to your circle. And make sure the people you walk beside are people you'd go to war with, not ones you'd have to look over your shoulder for. Because the next part. It's the one most men refuse to face. Part 4, The Slow Poison of Passive Envy. Some men hate you out loud. You can deal with those. But the ones who smile in your face. The ones who cheer for you, while quietly hoping you slip. They're the real threat. Passive envy is silent sabotage. It doesn't show up with a dagger, it shows up with silence when you succeed, lukewarm applause, and subtle downplaying of your victories. They'll never say it outright, but you'll feel it. He's lucky. He just knows the right people. It's not that deep, anyone could have done it. And here's the danger. You'll keep them close because they're polite. Because they never did anything wrong. But envy is patient. It will wait years. And when your guard drops, when you need support, they'll either disappear, or worse, they'll assist your downfall with a quiet hand and a clean conscience. Machiavelli warned of this: a prince must not only guard against open enemies but also beware those closest to him who envy his position. Envy doesn't strike with a roar, it seeps in like humidity. It corrupts conversations. It poisons trust. It kills morale from the inside out. So here's the rule. Don't trust people who can't celebrate you. If your success makes someone uncomfortable, cut them off. Not later. Not gently. Immediately. Because a man who envies you in silence is just waiting for the perfect moment to feel superior. And that moment usually comes when you're bleeding. Never let them close enough to enjoy the view. Part 5, Normalizing Incompetence. The beginning of a failing empire? It's not war. It's not rebellion. It's tolerated incompetence. The moment you accept laziness as just his way. The moment you let missed deadlines slide because he meant well. The moment you let average become acceptable. That's when decay begins. And no, it doesn't announce itself with a headline. It shows up in late arrivals. In half-baked efforts. In the slow death of standards. Because here's the truth. Your standards are louder than your words. You can preach excellence all day. But if you let one weak link stay in your chain, you've already failed. And the rest of your people are watching. Closely. They see that incompetence isn't punished. They see that mediocrity is protected. And so they begin to ask, why should I give 100% when he only gives 60 and still gets paid, praised, or promoted? Machiavelli understood this power dynamic intimately. He wrote that corruption in a state begins not with bad laws, but with the failure to enforce good ones. Translation. The rot starts at the top, with what you allow. The excuse makers. The chronic underperformers. The emotionally unstable who drain the room with every interaction. Cut them out. Because every day you don't, you're telling your tribe, your team, your people. You don't need to be excellent here. Just know how to survive. And when survival becomes the culture, collapse is just a matter of time. Letting people stay in positions they haven't earned is not kindness. It's weakness wearing a smile. You don't build greatness with comfort. You build it with demand. So here's your gut check. Who in your circle, your team, your business, your brotherhood, is still there simply because you don't want the conflict of removing them? You already know the name. And every day they remain is a crack in your leadership. A leak in your boat. A stain on your empire. Part 6, Appeasing Emotional Saboteurs. There is a type of person you must never give power to. Not because they're incompetent. Not because they're evil. But because they are ruled entirely by emotion. They cry at criticism. They explode over inconvenience. They sulk when they don't get their way. And if you don't cut this energy out of your world, it will suck the strength right out of your system. These people don't argue ideas, they perform feelings. They weaponize emotion to control everyone around them. And the moment you start appeasing them, conceding just to keep the peace, you've already lost the war. Because they will take that inch and demand a kingdom. Machiavelli would say, he who seeks to please all will lose the respect of the few who matter. And that's the trap. Appeasement feels easier in the moment. It avoids conflict. It gets you through the day. But in the long game, it erodes strength. It kills merit. It turns your tribe into a therapy circle where truth is drowned in sensitivity. You're not a king if you have to walk on eggshells in your own court. A real leader creates a culture where facts beat feelings. Where discipline is higher than drama. Where you don't need to explain the tone of your voice every time you speak truth. So next time someone tries to derail your momentum with emotional chaos, remember. You're not here to babysit reactions. You're here to build legacy. Keep that focus. Part 7, Letting Gratitude Replace Strategy. This last one. It's the one that destroys the best men alive. Because it doesn't look like a weakness. It feels noble. It feels loyal. It feels like integrity. But it's fatal. It's when you keep someone around not because they're still adding value, but because they helped you once. It's when you don't let go of someone who's now harmful, just because they were useful in your early days. That's how strong men die slowly, by clinging to old loyalties that no longer serve the mission. Loyalty is sacred, but loyalty out of guilt is a death sentence. Machiavelli knew this paradox well. He advised rulers to be strategic in relationships, not sentimental. Because the crown doesn't care how long someone's been with you. It only cares whether they still belong there. So ask yourself. Are they loyal to your mission, or just loyal to the version of you that needed them? Are they still fighting for you, or just collecting favors based on history? Are they helping you build your next chapter, or holding you hostage to a past you've already outgrown? Gratitude is beautiful. But if it replaces evaluation, you're doomed. You can be grateful, and still move forward. You can appreciate the past, and still protect the future. But you cannot let yesterday's helpers become today's anchors. Cut gently if you must. But cut. The final law of power. There's one truth that cuts through every lesson. Power doesn't collapse in one blow. It leaks through silent compromises. One unchecked betrayal. One tolerated coward. One ignored disrespect. One saboteur you didn't confront. One incompetent friend you gave another chance. One emotional manipulator you didn't want to upset. One outdated loyalty that now costs you more than it gives. That's how thrones fall. Not from outside attacks, but from the rot you allowed to stay inside. You want to be a leader. You want to build something that lasts. Then you need to develop the courage to be hated by the wrong people. Because every time you say yes to what should have been a no, you're not just compromising. You're burying your power alive.